Good morning. It's time for our daily devotion. I hope you have been thinking a lot about the Christmas season. I have been. I've been listening to some Christmas music, and I am really enjoying the anticipation that comes every year at this time as we think about the coming of Christ the first time. I was thinking this morning about that little stable scene, the nativity scene that we see so much. Most of us have some sort of nativity scene, either a picture or a little wooden stable and some figurines that go in it, either at church or at home, or the places we visit during the holiday season. And some are huge and some are very small and tiny. Some are very fancy. Some are very crude and plain. But all of those nativity scenes show what I like to call the very first church service. Because here at the nativity scene, we have Jesus at the center, which is where Jesus should always be. He is surrounded by family who are worshiping him, which is how it should always be. And then those who have been invited to come are also worshiping and bringing their gifts and are also kneeling, bowed down to worship Jesus, which is how it should be. And the angels are rejoicing and singing as it should always be, because angels rejoice when people come to Jesus. And there in those meager surroundings, we see the makings of the very first church service. Jesus at the center, surrounded by families worshiping him, surrounded by those who have been invited worshiping him, accompanied by the presence of God as shown through the angels. That is really what church is all about. It should be a celebration of Jesus, where Jesus is preeminent, where Jesus is number one, where Jesus is at the center of all that we do. Now, a lot of times when we get to church, what we want to happen is what we want to happen. We want to be the center. We want the songs to be familiar songs. We want the people to dress in familiar ways. We want the version of the Bible to be the one that we prefer. And we want everything to revolve around us. And yet that nativity scene, that first stable scene, that first church service on Christmas night so many years ago really shows us what church should all be about. Jesus at the center, it being all about him, families gathered to worship him, those invited there to worship him, the angelic host rejoicing at what's happening there. And no matter whether that's in a cathedral or in a little shanty somewhere, or a little grass hut like Jane and I visited in India, or in someone's living room like we had the privilege of seeing in China, or in a very meager building, very primitive and crude like we saw in Mexico, or whether in the greatest cathedrals of Europe like I have seen in France and in Ireland and in England. Regardless of where it is, when Jesus is at the center, surrounded by families who are worshiping him and those who have been invited to join in the celebration, and the presence of God is there, it's church. So, every time you see a nativity scene, every time you see that manger, every time you see that little stable, and those figurines this Christmas season, would you say to yourself, man, that's what it's all about. Jesus at the center of the celebration. Now, go make it a great day. I'll see you next time.